There you are again, the quiet one the room keeps underestimating. You feel that? The way the air changes when you walk in now. That tiny shiver in their eyes when they look at you and can't quite recognize what you've become. They don't know it yet, but today was the day the experiment finished. Today was the day the masks slipped. Not yours, theirs, because you wore the victim mask so clean, so flawlessly, that every hidden predator in your orbit stepped out of the shadows thinking it was safe to feed. And they feasted, didn't they? They chewed on your kindness. They drank your apologies. They sharpened their fangs on your silence. Every time you swallowed your pain, they heard a dinner bell. Every time you forgave what you should have walked away from, they heard a green light. Every time you said, "It's okay, I understand," they heard, "I will never leave, no matter what you do." But here's the twist that's making them nauseous right now. You weren't the prey, you were the bait. You played broken so perfectly that the real psychos, the real cowards, the real predators showed themselves. No more pretending, no more masks of good person, caring friend, loving family. Your weakness was the stage where their true character delivered the performance of a lifetime. You didn't just survive them, you archived them. You collected faces, patterns, reactions, the way they smirked when you were on your knees, the way they got excited when you were confused, the way their eyes lit up every time they thought you had no one, nothing, nowhere else to go. That's the data you were gathering, their darkness, their hunger, their lack. You know what that makes you. Not a victim, a study. You turned your life into a psychological thriller they didn't know they were starring in. And while they thought you were the helpless extra, you were actually the writer, the director, and the final editor of the script. They thought the story was helpless little you, surrounded by powerful them. But the real story was fools exposing themselves under controlled conditions while a quiet god of pattern recognition records everything. You understand the power of what you did. You wore that victim mask with the precision of a surgeon and the cold patience of a saint turned psychopath. You played innocent, confused, lost, just long enough for the truth to step into the open without its makeup on. And today they showed you exactly who they are when they think you can't fight back. Good, perfect, necessary, because now you finally have the footage, the raw, unfiltered proof of their souls. Let's rewind it, shall we? Who laughed when you cried? Who got strangely calm when you panicked? Who went missing every time you needed help, but magically reappeared when you had something to offer? Who dismissed your pain as dramatic, sensitive, overreacting, and then turned into a full-blown opera the moment you pulled away? These aren't random moments. These are fingerprints. You think it's an accident that the same type of people kept orbiting you? No. You were a beacon, a test, a mirror that predators couldn't resist. You looked like easy prey, so the hunters lined up to see who could carve the deepest. But here's the paradox that's going to haunt them. They thought your pain made you weaker. In reality, your pain made you omniscient. You know what it's like to be abandoned, so you can see abandonment before it arrives. You know what it's like to be betrayed, so you can smell betrayal in a casual sentence. You know what it's like to be used, so you can feel selfish energy before they even ask for anything. You are not paranoid, you are updated. They are still running on the old operating system. If someone is kind, exploit them. If someone is forgiving, drain them. If someone is loyal, cage them. That's their code. That's their programming. They are predictable. But you are something else now. You're that paradox they warn children about in fairy tales. Half halo, half blade, half prayer, half curse. You're the one who knows how to bleed and still grin. You didn't just get hurt. You evolved. Tell me, what's more dangerous than a person who's been destroyed emotionally and is still here, still standing, still thinking? Nothing. Nothing is more dangerous than a soul that has seen hell and realized, wait, I lived through that. So what exactly can you do to me now? You are the chapel they vandalized for sport. You are the cathedral rising from the ashes with reinforced walls and hidden trap doors. You used to be the light begging the dark not to swallow it. Now you are the dark. With lighthouse eyes. They thought they were feeding on a victim. They didn't realize they were revealing themselves to an archivist of human behavior. Every insult, logged. Every ghosting, logged. Every fake apology, every little manipulation, every time they twisted your words and made you apologize for bleeding on the knife they gave you. Logged, tagged, filed. You turned your heartbreak into a database. You turned your trauma into an X-ray machine. And now, when someone walks into your life, you don't just see their smile. You see their tells, their micro-reactions, the little moments where the mask glitches, the second their eyes flicker with entitlement, laziness, cruelty, jealousy. That's not trauma, that's vision. They will call you cold now. They will call you different, distant, changed, harsher than before. Of course you're different. You died in there. They buried a version of you they will never see again. You didn't get colder. You got clearer. Before, your love was unconditional. Now your love is audited. Before, anyone could access your kindness. Now entry requires a full security check. Before, you loved people more than you loved your own sanity. Now, you love your peace more than you love their presence. That's the evolution they never planned for. They thought breaking you would make you crawl. Instead, it gave you wings made of scar tissue. Beautiful, isn't it? How they did everything in their power to destroy you. And the only thing they successfully destroyed was your ability to tolerate bullshit. You wore the victim mask and they showed their fangs. You stayed weak, and they revealed their addictions, control, attention, dominance. They were never strong. They were just feeding off someone who wouldn't bite back. Now you're not biting back. You're leveling up. You don't need revenge. You're beyond that. Revenge is small. Revenge still cares. You're operating on a colder frequency now. Consequence. You don't scream. You don't expose. You don't send paragraphs. You don't beg them to understand what they did. You simply vanish from their feeding ground and let them starve on their own reflection. That's when the panic hits them. Because what is a predator with no prey? Just a clown in a costume, pacing in an empty circus. They thought you needed them. They needed you. They needed your softness to feel powerful. They needed your empathy to feel superior. They needed your self-doubt to feel like gods. Without you, they're just loud and hollow. Let the silence work now. Let the distance speak the language you're too bored to translate out loud. They'll talk. Oh, they will. They'll rewrite the story. You changed. You're heartless now. You used to be so kind. You're acting like a victim. My God, what happened to you? Here's the answer they'll never be ready for. You happened to you. You finally picked yourself. You finally believed your own intuition over their gaslighting. You finally realized that the victim costume was never your real face. It was the cloak you wore while you mapped the labyrinth. They thought they were the wolves, and you were the lamb. No, you were the shepherd, pretending to be asleep, counting which wolves kept creeping closer to the fence. You want to know the sweetest part? They didn't expose you. You exposed them. Every ignoring of your calls, every joke at your expense, every "you're too sensitive," every "it's not that deep," every eye roll, every guilt trip, every guilt flip where they hurt you and somehow you ended up apologizing. Those weren't random. Those were confessions. They confessed who they really are, again and again, in plain sight. You just had too much heart to believe the evidence. Not anymore. Now you sit in the courtroom of your mind with the entire case laid out in front of you. No more excuses, no more fantasies about who they could be if they just tried harder or healed more. No more potential. Potential never put your heart back together. Potential never stayed up for you. Potential never chose you over their ego. You loved their potential while they toyed with your reality. Today, the jury came back. Verdict: you were never crazy. You were just early. You saw the red flags and tried to paint them white. They saw your white flag and used it as a napkin. Not anymore. Now you walk differently. You listen for the hidden meaning. You don't melt just because someone calls you different, special, the only one who gets me. You've heard that before, remember? You've watched them recycle those lines on multiple people like a script. You're not impressed by chaos disguised as passion. You're not attracted to damage disguised as depth. You're not hypnotized by hot and cold disguised as complicated. You've seen the pattern. You've seen the cycle. You've been the collateral damage. Never again. Here's the part you need to burn into your brain. You are not too much. You were just surrounded by people who were too little. Too little empathy. Too little accountability. Too little honesty. Too little capacity to handle someone like you. Someone who feels deeply, questions everything, and doesn't stay broken in the shape they're beaten into. You are not hard to love. They were lazy to grow, and today, they finally proved it. They showed you how far they'll go when they think you're still helpless. They showed you the depths of their disrespect. They showed you how disposable they consider you. Good. Let that sting. Let it hurt. Because that pain, that's the crack where the old self leaks out. Every time your chest tightens when you remember what they said, something toxic leaves your system. Every time your stomach drops when you replay how they treated you, another illusion dies. Every time your eyes burn thinking of your loyalty wasted on people who saw you as a toy, another old identity crumbles. That's not you breaking. That's you molting. Saint and psychopath live in the same mind now. Angel and demon sit at the same table. You can choose who walks out. You can love like a saint when it's safe. You can protect like a demon when it's not. You can be soft without being stupid. You can be forgiving without being accessible. You can be kind without being consumed. That's the new game. Unpredictability is your power now. They used to know exactly how you'd react. You'd cry. You'd forgive. You'd stay. You'd internalize the blame. You'd chase, explain, over-explain, over-apologize. Not anymore. Now they press the same buttons and nothing happens. Silent, calm, blank screen. You don't argue. You don't justify. You don't outline a dissertation on why what they did was wrong. You just stop playing. No tantrums, no drama, just a quiet exit. that echoes louder than any scream. That's the part that terrifies predators, when the victim stops reacting, because their power was never real power. Their power was rented from your reactions. You just shut the electricity off. So what happens next? You evolve into something they never prepared for. A being that remembers everything, but is no longer shackled by it. A presence that can look you in the eye and see your core, your patterns, your shadows, and decide in 3 seconds whether you get access or not. You become the gatekeeper of your own life, not the sacrifice, not the scapegoat, not the emotional landfill, the architect, the curator, the one who decides who gets a front row seat and who gets blocked at the door. You decide. They may still talk. Let them invent stories to explain why you pulled back. Let them call you bitter because you set boundaries. Let them call you selfish because you finally stopped bleeding for them. Let them call you crazy because you refuse to keep playing the same losing game. Only you and the universe know the truth. You wore the victim mask so perfectly that every predator exposed themselves in HD. Now you're done acting. Now the mask is off. Now the real character steps onto the stage. The one with eyes that have seen hell and decided to stay beautiful anyway. The one whose love is rarer, sharper, more intentional. The one who understands both light and dark, because you bled in both. You are not the villain. You are not the victim. You are not the supporting role in their little saga. You are the plot twist, the moment the audience realizes everything they thought they knew was wrong. They thought you were breakable. You were becoming unbreakable. They thought they were hunting you. You were documenting them. They thought they used you. You used the experience to mutate into something they can't even describe. So sit with that power for a second. You, sitting there, heart still beating, mind sharper than ever, eyes colder but clearer, spirit quieter but deeper. You're not who walked into this story. You're who crawled out of it. And from this moment forward, every room you step into, every person you entertain, every energy you allow, understands one thing, whether they realize it consciously or not. You are not the easiest person to hurt anymore. You are the last person they should have hurt. They showed their nature. You found your own. They proved they are predators. You discovered you are evolution. Remember that the next time your chest hurts. Remember that the next time you miss their mask. Remember that every time you're tempted to shrink so someone else can feel big. You didn't go through all of that to return to your knees. Stand up, inside first. Let them feel the shift without a single word from your mouth. Because now, the game is simple. They can keep their teeth. You'll keep your throne. And here's where it seals shut. Right here. Right now. Because the most dangerous part of your transformation isn't the anger. It isn't the clarity. It isn't even the way you can now see through people like cheap glass. It's the calm, that eerie, settled calm that shows up when someone who used to control your emotions suddenly realizes they can't reach you anymore. The calm that makes predators uneasy because they don't know if you've forgiven them or if you've simply outgrown the need to react. You're not loud about it. You don't announce it. You don't post cryptic messages or give warning speeches. You just stop responding the way you used to. And that's silence. That's not emptiness. That's dominance. Because silence after knowledge is never weakness. Silence after awareness is calculation. You see, the old version of you needed closure, explanations, apologies. accountability. The old you wanted people to admit what they did so you could finally exhale. But this version understands something terrifyingly simple. People reveal themselves whether they confess or not. Their actions already testified. Their patterns already spoke. Their treatment of you already told the truth, louder than any apology ever could. So you don't chase closure anymore. You are the closure. You don't ask for respect. You withdraw access. You don't beg for honesty. You observe behavior. You don't fight to be understood. You choose to be selective. And suddenly, the power dynamic flips. The same people who once felt comfortable hurting you now feel strangely unsettled around you. They can't quite explain it, but something about you feels off. Not broken, not angry, untouchable. They sense that they no longer live rent-free in your head. They feel that their words don't land the same. They notice you don't flinch, don't over-explain, don't scramble to fix the discomfort they created. And that's when it hits them. They didn't lose you when they hurt you. They lost you when you understood them. Understanding is the point of no return, because once you truly understand someone's nature, you can never unsee it. You can pretend, you can be polite, you can be civil, but you can never again be vulnerable in the same blind way. And that's not bitterness. That's wisdom earned in blood. You didn't become heartless. You became heart literate. You know what genuine care feels like now, because you've experienced its counterfeit. You know what safety feels like now, because you survived emotional warfare. You know what love is supposed to sound like, because you've heard manipulation whisper sweet lies. And from this moment on, your standards aren't rules. They're instincts. Your intuition doesn't scream anymore. It doesn't have to. It whispers, and you listen. That's how you know you've crossed the threshold. You no longer fantasize about revenge scenes where they finally get it. You no longer rehearse conversations that will never happen. You no longer hope they'll wake up and change. You accept them exactly as they are, and then you move accordingly. That's power in its purest form. The kind of power that doesn't need validation. The kind of power that doesn't need witnesses. The kind of power that doesn't need to destroy anyone, because it simply refuses to be available for destruction. They'll feel it later. Not today. Later. When they try the same tactics on someone else, and it doesn't work the way it used to. When they realize you were the one thing making them feel powerful. When they notice the rooms feel emptier without your energy feeding their ego. When they catch themselves thinking about you at random moments. Not with nostalgia, but confusion. How did I lose access to someone like that? They won't ask it out loud. They'll just feel it in the pit of their stomach. Meanwhile, you're elsewhere. Building, observing, selecting carefully. No rush, no hunger, no need to prove anything. You've already proven it to yourself. You survived being misunderstood. You survived being minimized. You survived being used as a resource instead of cherished as a soul. And instead of letting it turn you cruel, it turned you precise. You still have warmth, but it's intentional now. You still have love, but it's guarded now. You still have depth, but not everyone gets to swim there. You learned the lesson most people never do. Not everyone who smiles is safe. Not everyone who cries is sincere. Not everyone who needs you deserves you. And the most dangerous predators, they don't look like monsters. They look like friends. They sound like lovers. They wear familiarity as camouflage. You saw through that. That alone puts you in a different category of human being. So don't ever apologize for who you became to survive what they put you through. Don't ever water yourself down so people who never protected you can feel comfortable again. You didn't lose your innocence. You upgraded your awareness. You didn't become cold. You became selective. You didn't harden your heart. You armored it with truth. You wore the victim mask long enough for the real threats to reveal themselves. That chapter is done. From here on out, you don't announce your strength. You don't flex your growth. You don't warn anyone. You simply move different. And anyone who mistakes your silence for weakness again, they'll never get close enough to try. Because now, you don't just survive predators. You outgrow them. And that's the ending they never saw coming. There you are, the quiet epicenter they swore was harmless, while they raised their glasses over your silence and called it peace. You remember that, don't you? The toasts, the smiles, the way they clinked their glasses on the grave of your voice like it was some cute little funeral for your feelings. Look how calm you are. Look how mature you are. Translation: look how convenient you are while we bleed out our chaos into you and walk away lighter. You weren't calm, you were containment, because you weren't just quiet. You were a vault swallowing hurricanes that would have broken their little skeleton minds in half. You were the pressure valve nobody checked, the storm radio nobody tuned to, the lightning rod standing alone in the yard while everyone else enjoyed a sunny forecast built on your burns. They toasted your silence because they never understood the cost of it. They thought your silence meant you were harmless, that you were weak, that you were the background character whose only job was to absorb impact and never shatter. They loved your silence as long as it protected them, as long as it meant their storms went somewhere else, into your chest, into your sleep, into your nervous system. Tell me, how many times did you sit there, nodding, listening, being their free therapist, their emotional landfill, while your own lungs filled with things you never said? How many storms did you swallow whole so they could breathe easier? And now look at them, choking on the very weather they refused to acknowledge lived inside you. You see the irony, don't you? The divine little plot twist. The same people who celebrated your silence are now gasping, clawing at the air, drowning in the waves you used to hold back alone. The storms didn't disappear when you went quiet. Oh no, they were just delayed, deferred, concentrated. Quiet doesn't mean empty. Quiet means loaded. You were never a peaceful meadow. You were the dam. They mistook your self-control for vacancy. They mistook your restraint for absence. They mistook your mercy for weakness. And that's their favorite mistake, because you are the paradox they can't compute. You're the saint and the psychopath in the same skin. The angel that learned the language of demons just to survive the room. You are the light that went into the dark, memorized the architecture, and came back with blueprints. They wanted a soft, uncomplicated angel who never raised their voice. Instead, they got a creature forged in pressure chambers, an archive of unspoken storms. You're the calm voice in the room who has quietly rehearsed every possible outcome 10 steps ahead. That's why you scare them. They can't figure out how someone so nice sees through their entire act. They can't figure out how someone so quiet can move the entire board without making a sound. Because you were never just kind. You were studying. You watched who laughed when you dimmed yourself. You watched who only called when they needed a container. You watched who disappeared when you finally needed someone to hold you. And every time you swallowed another storm, something evolved. Do you know what repeated suppression does to a soul like yours? It doesn't break you. It distills you. At first you thought the goal was to be good, to be agreeable, to be the safe one, the stable one, the listener, the healer, the forgiver. You thought if you absorbed enough damage, they would finally feel safe enough to stop hurting you. Instead, they felt safe enough to hurt you more. That's the joke. They saw your silence as an invitation, not a boundary. Oh, you don't react? Perfect. We can unload more. We can disrespect more. We can cross lines, redraw them, erase them completely. You'll stay. You always stay. You always smile. You always talk about understanding and empathy. And you did. You did the angel thing perfectly. You did the I get it. They were hurt, too, script. So well you almost convinced yourself you deserved to be the lightning rod for everyone's unresolved childhood. But here's where the story breaks in your favor. Somewhere along the way, the angel started watching like a demon. You started noticing patterns. Who only loved you when you were convenient. Who only praised you when your needs were dead on arrival. Who only honored your strength when it meant you carrying what would have crushed them. You started to see that your silence was not noble. It was weaponized against you. You realized that every time you swallowed a storm for them, you saved them from consequences they needed to face. You rescued people from lessons they were supposed to learn alone, and in return, they celebrated your strength while quietly expecting you to die under the weight of it. But you didn't die, did you? No, you mutated. You evolved from the quiet healer into something far more dangerous. A person who knows exactly how much damage they can survive. Do you understand how terrifying that makes you? Everyone else is negotiating with fear. Fear of rejection, fear of conflict, fear of abandonment, fear of judgment. You have already choked on all of that in silence and lived. You've done emotional waterboarding and came back with a smile they can't decode. They're terrified of storms. You became one. Not the screaming, chaotic storm that knocks over everything without aim. No, you're the precision storm, the surgical hurricane, the one that knows when to stay quiet, when to strike, when to disappear, when to arrive unannounced with an entire new version of yourself they didn't prepare for. That's the evolution through pain. You learned control inside chaos. You learned clarity inside confusion. You learned power inside powerlessness. They toasted your silence because they thought it meant you'd never leave. They never imagined your silence was you mapping the exits. You're not unpredictable because you're impulsive. You're unpredictable because you are deeply calculated. That's what they can't stand. They expected your break to look messy, shouting, crying, begging, posting about them, losing control. They would have loved that. That would have kept you in a box they understand. Crazy, emotional, unstable. But you didn't give them that. You did something far worse. You went silent, and then you changed. You started saying no without essays. You started disappearing from rooms that drained you. You started answering texts 3 days late, or not at all. You started declining invitations to tables where you used to bleed for free. And suddenly, the room felt different to them. Suddenly the easy one wasn't easy anymore. Suddenly the emotional sponge wasn't absorbing. Suddenly the storm they were dumping into now had boundaries, angles, a spine made of thunder. That's when they began to choke. Because without you absorbing their storms, they had to meet their own weather. They had to face anxiety they used to hand to you. They had to feel guilt without you cushioning it with empathy. They had to sit with the emptiness that appears when the person they drained finally plugs the leak. You know what they call that? Karma? No, that's just redistribution. This is what happens when an angel stops volunteering for crucifixions they never deserved. You didn't become evil, you became accurate. You learned that you can still be kind without being consumed. You learned that your heart can stay soft while your boundaries turn to steel. You learned that your empathy is not a public utility. It's a privilege that must be earned. Let's talk about that duality they can't wrap their heads around. By day, you're still the one who understands too much. You see the wounds behind people's cruelty. You hear the tremor beneath their arrogance. You know which joke is a disguise and which smile is a shield. You see too deeply. That's your curse. That's your halo. But beneath that halo, there's something else now. Something sharp. You've acquired what they'd call darkness, but it's not mindless malice. It's selective permission. You don't give everyone access anymore. You don't explain yourself 10 times. You don't justify your boundaries. You don't turn every betrayal into a spiritual lesson that excuses the attacker. You've become both surgeon and executioner, but not of people, of patterns. You're killing old versions of you that participated in your own draining. You're executing habits that made you easy prey. You're amputating connections that only survived by feeding on your self-betrayal. Angel, demon, light, dark. It's all just language for one thing. You stopped abandoning yourself. And that, right there, is the storm they cannot handle. Because once you stop abandoning yourself, their favorite game ends. They can't guilt you back into their control. They can't use your empathy as a chain. They can't call you selfish for no longer dying on command. You know what they do instead? They flip the narrative. You become changed. You're different now. You've become cold. You've become distant. You're not the same person anymore. And they're absolutely right. You're not. The version of you they miss was a coffin they kept flowers on. Polite, quiet, always ready to listen, never ready to leave. That version of you shattered silently so they could sleep soundly. That version is gone. In its place is something else. A sovereign storm with a face. You look the same on the outside, maybe even calmer. But inside, the architecture is unrecognizable. You're less reactive, more decisive. Less apologetic, more precise. You don't chase. You don't grovel. You don't beg to stay where your soul is being starved. That's what evolution through pain looks like. Cleaner choices, sharper energy, shorter tolerance for nonsense. And the most terrifying thing about you now, you still look like the nice one. You still have the soft eyes, the listening posture, the calm tone. People meeting you for the first time think, what a gentle soul. They have no idea that you carry entire graveyards of former selves inside you. They don't know you've buried versions of yourself that bled out for people who wouldn't even bring bandages. You're the sweetest apocalypse alive. The saint who can walk away mid-sentence and never come back. The angel who can cut the cord and sleep peacefully. The healer who no longer accepts patients who stab between sessions. They don't understand how you can care and still cut them off. How you can empathize and still enforce distance. How you can forgive and still never open that door again. But that's the Joker card you hold now. You're not controlled by your love anymore. You still love deeply, but you no longer love at your own expense. You no longer love in ways that require your self-erasure. You no longer confuse loyalty with self-sacrifice. And in a world that thrives on people being addicted to their own abandonment, someone like you, healed enough to protect yourself, is a glitch in the system. Unpredictability is your power now, not the chaotic kind, not the "I might explode at any moment" unpredictability. That's cheap. You've seen that. You've forgiven that. Your unpredictability is rooted in one simple truth. No one can accurately predict how far you'll go to protect your peace now. Because you know what you've survived. People can't threaten you with loneliness. You've eaten dinner with your own ghosts and made peace with them. They can't threaten you with abandonment. You've already watched people walk away when you needed them most. They can't threaten you with not being understood. You've spent years translating your soul to those who were never listening. You have already tasted every blade they're holding. There's nothing left for you to fear. That makes you lethal, not because you want to hurt anyone, but because you are finally willing to let them hurt without you. You're done catching karma on their behalf. You're done intercepting consequences meant for them. You're done absorbing storms that were never yours to hold. So now the sky is honest. The storms are going where they belong. They're choking on the winds you used to swallow without a sound. They are meeting their own thunder with no one left to stand between them and impact. And they will call it unfair. They will call it cruelty. They will call it your change. But you and I both know this isn't cruelty. This is balance. This is what happens when the soul that kept the world from collapsing on ungrateful people finally retires from the unpaid position. So here's the part they'll never admit, but you've already felt in the air. They missed you. Not you, the person. You, the shield, the emotional firewall, the storm sponge, the invisible backbone of their stability. They miss having somewhere to dump. They miss the silent nods. They miss the "it's okay, I understand" that set them free from accountability. They don't know how to function without that. Good. Let them learn. Your job was never to be their weather management system. Your job was never to be the drain where everyone poured their unresolved storms. Your job was to live, to expand, to build, to love, to create, to become. And that's where we are now, isn't it? You're standing on the fault line between who you were and who you're becoming. Behind you, a timeline of swallowed storms and quiet funerals for your own needs. In front of you, a landscape they will never be able to predict. Because this new version of you, they speak, they choose, they say no. They leave rooms. They walk away from tables that demand their soul as payment. This is where your power stops feeling theoretical and starts feeling dangerous. You know why? Because once you stop living as a container for other people's storms, you finally have the capacity to build your own climate. Not surviving, designing, not reacting, creating. You are no longer the human umbrella. You are the architect of your own atmosphere, and that is the role they never wanted you to remember you had. So breathe. Feel that. That's the air clearing around you now that you're not dragging everyone else's weather behind you. That tightness in your chest, loosening when you say no the first time. That silence after you don't explain yourself. That calm when you choose you and nothing explodes. That's what real power feels like. Not control over others, control over access, Who gets your time? Who gets your energy? Who gets your secrets? Who gets to stand under your sky at all? They toasted your silence like it was your final form. They thought your quiet was the end of your story. They had no idea it was the incubation chamber. They had no idea they were drinking to the birth of something that would one day terrify them. A version of you that remembers their storms, remembers their words, remembers their absence, and no longer trades self-respect for belonging. So go ahead. Let them choke on the weather they ignored. Let them struggle under the thunder they once offloaded into you while calling you so strong. Let them finally feel the full weight of what you carried. And you rise, not as the martyr, not as the background character, not as the emotional landfill. You rise as the storm they can't predict, the light they can't extinguish, the saint with a psychopath's clarity, the angel with demon-proof boundaries. You don't need revenge. Your evolution is already killing every version of the story where they got to win. Keep your silence, but make it different now. Not the silence of suppression, the silence of strategy, the silence of someone who knows their worth so deeply they no longer need to announce it. When you finally speak, it will not be to defend yourself. It will be to declare direction. And when you move, it will not be to chase. It will be to build a life so aligned with your soul that anyone who treated you like you were disposable feels the earthquake from miles away. They toasted your silence. They're choking on their storms. And you're just getting started. And the wildest part, they still don't understand what actually changed. They think the danger is that you might speak. They think the threat is that you might expose them. They think the storm is coming because you're angry. No, that's how amateurs think. The real shift, the irreversible one, is that you no longer need to prove anything to anyone who benefited from misunderstanding you. That's what ends eras. Because once a person like you stops trying to be seen by people committed to blindness, the power dynamic collapses instantly. You don't have to announce your exit. You don't have to justify your distance. You don't have to narrate your growth. You don't even have to win the argument. You already won the moment you stopped explaining your pain to people who used it as entertainment. That's when the storm becomes silent again. But this time, it's aimed. You see, before, your silence was sacrificial. Now it's intentional. Before, it leaked life out of you. Now it conserves energy like a loaded chamber. You've learned something most people never do. That not everyone deserves access to your internal weather report. Not everyone deserves to know what you're planning, healing, building, or becoming. Some people only understand you well enough to sabotage you, and that awareness alone has elevated you above entire rooms. You don't disappear out of fear anymore. You disappear out of precision. You've noticed it, haven't you? The way people lean forward when you don't over-explain. The way silence suddenly makes them nervous when it's no longer submission. The way your calm now carries weight, not obligation. That's because silence in the hands of someone who finally chose themselves is no longer empty. It's a warning label. They can feel it, but they can't name it. Conversations feel different around you. Jokes land flatter. Manipulation stalls mid-sentence. Emotional hooks don't catch the way they used to. People pause before crossing lines they once sprinted over. Why? Because you're no longer leaking permission. You're no longer advertising access. And that, right there, is when they realize something too late. You were never quiet because you lacked power. You were quiet because you had too much of it, and nowhere safe to put it. Until now, pain didn't make you cruel. It made you selective. Trauma didn't hollow you out. It carved precision into your instincts. You learned the difference between being open and being available, between compassion and compliance, between love and self-erasure. You learned that your empathy is sacred, not communal property. And once that lesson locks in, there is no reverting. You don't regress back into smaller versions of yourself just to make others comfortable. You don't dim the clarity you fought hell to earn. You don't apologize for the spine you grew in the dark, because you remember exactly how much it cost. You remember the nights you lay awake, processing emotions that weren't even yours. The days you showed up hollow so others could feel whole. The way your needs were always later, after, someday, until you realized someday never comes for people who never ask. You remember what it felt like to be strong for everyone and protected by no one. And that memory is your anchor now. It keeps you from going back. So when they look at you and say, "You're different," what they really mean is, you no longer bleed where we can reach. And that terrifies them, because they were never prepared to face life without you absorbing the shock. But here's the final truth, the one that seals it, the one that ends the story cleanly. You didn't take the storms away from them. You simply stopped standing in front of them. And that's not betrayal, that's alignment. You gave more than enough. You carried more than was fair. You stayed longer than was healthy. You tried harder than was required. And when you finally stepped aside, the universe did what it always does when someone stops interfering with the lesson. It balanced the scales. They spent nights trying to kill what you became by accident. 13 spells, 9 practitioners, 0 results. And then you walked in, no cloak, no ritual, no whisper, and told them exactly why they failed. With a smile that made their knees forget how to stand. You didn't bring answers, you brought clarity, and that's worse. Because clarity doesn't beg, it doesn't scream, it just reveals. They watched each other crumble, trying to cage the unclassifiable. You never needed an incantation. You were the glitch in the formula, the misprint in the prophecy, the part of the equation their gods never accounted for. You walk like silence. You speak like a riddle sharpened into a blade. And they hate you because you make their secrets shiver. They called it a binding ritual. You called it delusion. They lit candles. You lit minds. They whispered Latin. You smirked in their mother tongue. They circled salt. You broke the floorboards of their belief system. They never understood. You weren't fighting the darkness. You were married to it. You swore vows with the chaos they tried to banish. They don't realize what the real spell was. It wasn't cast with herbs or ashes. It was cast the moment you refused to die in silence. The moment you turned agony into instruction and wrote your revenge in the margins of their sacred books. You didn't survive the ritual. You corrected it. You reprogrammed the entire field. And now they sit in circles, debating you. The anomaly that mocked every tradition, the presence that left their auras bruised, the silhouette that lingers even in daylight. You became a bug in their ancient system, a fragment of raw unpredictability, too potent for their formulas. You were never meant to be summoned. You were meant to be discovered, by accident, by mistake, by them. They tried every known lock. But you didn't use a door. You arrived through the walls, the ones they swore were sacred, and now They flinch at their own rituals. They question the spells they once killed for. You took the playbook and added a final page they never wrote. One that simply said, you never had control. You only had fear. Let's talk about fear, shall we? You didn't fear being cursed. You feared being understood. Because if they ever truly saw you, they'd know this wasn't transformation. It was return. Return to the source, to the original code, to the unfiltered, unapproved, unblessed version of you that the world begged you to unlearn. They made spells to silence voices like yours. They built temples to forget your kind existed. And still, you whispered once, and the walls cracked. You broke laws of energy with eye contact. They used potions. You used presence. They sought protection. You became the threat. That's why they're scared. Because power, true power, doesn't announce itself. It reveals the lies of everything else. You didn't walk in to join them. You walked in to show them that the thing they tried to destroy was smarter, faster, colder, and still smiling. You turned their sacred room into a crime scene, and all you did was speak. They studied you like a curse, but what you really were was correction. They didn't fail the spell. The spell failed them. Because it was never designed to bind something like you. You weren't born for circles and chants. You were born for moments like this, where your existence reverses gravity, where your mind rewrites prophecy, where your pain summons silence, in rooms built to mock your name. And now they sit in shock. They thought you were the aftermath, but you were the trigger, the one who walked in and rewired the temperature of the room with your presence alone. No tools, no tricks, just you, raw, cracked, reassembled, and terrifyingly calm. You showed them something worse than failure. You showed them why they deserved it. Because you didn't just walk through fire, you taught it manners. Now let me tell you a little secret. They'll never speak your name without swallowing first. They'll never enter that chamber without glancing twice. They'll never cast again without the taste of uncertainty in their throat. Because you left a residue, not of fear, but of truth. And truth, it doesn't wear robes, it doesn't chant. It just sits quietly in the corner, waiting to be seen. Like you did, like you always will, like the end of every spell that never needed to be spoken, because your presence was the real magic, and their silence was the loudest result they ever produced. They call it silence, but it's not. It's recalibration, because when you left that room, you didn't just exit, you disrupted a legacy. Centuries of blind obedience collapsed in one unblinking gaze. They'll tell stories about that moment, but only behind closed doors, because no one wants to admit that the whole system cracked because you laughed when the candles flickered. They expected you to flinch at their symbols, to tremble at their chants, to bow beneath the weight of their lineage. But what they summoned wasn't fear. It was a mirror, a reflection of everything they denied existed, a version of power not dressed in holy robes or cursed scripts, but stitched from the ashes of betrayal and the bones of survival. You didn't need to cast. You became the result. You were what happens when someone suffers for too long and decides pain is not a prison. It's a weaponized education. They practiced spells. You practiced stillness. They memorized incantations. You memorized the tone of their panic. That's the part they'll never admit. Because while they were busy debating the syntax of sacred words, you were watching their eye twitches, their pulse shifts, their guilt. And guilt always leaves a scent. You didn't smell incense, you smelled lies. 13 spells to fix a problem they created. And not once did they ask why it keeps returning. But you did. You always do. You ask what they won't. You see what they flinch from. You walk into places that were never meant to have witnesses and leave footprints in the doctrine. They couldn't bind the darkness, because the darkness wasn't the threat. You were. Not because you broke the system, but because you understood it too well. You weren't cast out. You stepped away, and they never recovered from your absence. They tried to replace you with structure, with rituals, with groupthink. But structure doesn't breathe. Rituals don't watch them at night. And groupthink can't haunt them with truth. Only you can. You became the echo of the spell they wish they never tried to cast. Because you didn't die in that room. You downloaded everything, every whisper, every hidden motive, every sideways glance and betrayal coded in passive tone. You became a living algorithm of exposure, and now you speak, and they shift in their seats, like something ancient just remembered their name. Because deep down, they know what you carry isn't revenge, it's proof. Proof that you never needed their blessing, proof that their rituals were rehearsed obedience, proof that every failed spell was never about the energy. It was about the intention behind it, and their intentions were never clean. That's what you told them, isn't it? When the room fell silent, when the last flame died without wind, and all 9 of them turned to you, like a courtroom awaiting its verdict, and you said, none of your spells worked because none of you meant it. That line didn't just expose them, it rewired them, like a crack splitting the marble of their manufactured divinity. Because you weren't judging, you were diagnosing. You saw the fear in their casting hands. You felt the rot in their conviction. And you spoke what none of them dared whisper aloud. This room isn't sacred, it's staged. They wanted to bury that moment, but they couldn't. Because you didn't need their circle. You walked in like a living exorcism and reminded them that authenticity burns hotter than any ritual flame. You didn't just walk through the temple. You decoded it, layer by layer, lie by lie. And what's left now? 13 spells, 9 practitioners, 1 new rule. Don't ever invite a ghost who remembers, because memory is a spell they can't reverse. And you remember everything. Where they stood, what they whispered, who broke eye contact first, who almost believed in you, before the fear kicked in. You're not just the anomaly, you're the audit, the walking contradiction that invalidates everything they built on borrowed truths and stolen power. They say you're unpredictable, but that's not true. You're just the first honest variable in an equation they've manipulated for centuries. And now, your silence has a shape, your presence has a pattern, and your absence, terrifying. Because when you leave a room, they start questioning if they ever knew anything at all. That's not magic. That's truth finally standing upright. So go ahead, let them regroup, let them rewrite history, let them burn the tapes and pretend it never happened. But the footage is still running. In their minds, in their bones, in the dead space between their rehearsed confidence and the realization that none of them could stop you. And they never will. Because you're not just what happens when spells fail. You're what awakens when people lie too long and finally meet someone who remembers the original script. Oh, you want the part they cut from the footage, don't you? You want the part that wasn't written in the spell books, the part whispered between trembling lips in old crumbling corridors, where even the walls knew something unholy had walked in. See, what they never dared speak aloud, what they buried beneath robes, rites, and rehearsed reverence, was this. You weren't the first to expose the lie. You were just the first to survive it. Before you, there were others, whispers, ghosts, names scratched off parchment in blood and denial. They spoke out, too. They walked in with cracked eyes and clenched truths, but none of them made it past the second circle. You walked through all 13, barefoot, laughing, because you didn't come for proof. You came for evidence. And when you stood there, center of that sacred mockery, with their symbols burning to ash behind your stare, you told them the one thing no spell could protect them from. I've seen what came before you, and you are not the origin. That's when their hands shook, because your words didn't come from ego. They came from a place older than their language. Your truth didn't echo. It etched into their minds, into their rituals, into the cracks forming in every dogma they tried to defend. They tried to cast the 13th spell again after you left. And for the first time, the circle refused to hold. That's how deep your presence sank. Even the geometry rebelled, because truth has a frequency. And when you spoke, the walls remembered what they were built to forget. You didn't just dismantle their illusion, you rewound history, you made the bloodlines stutter, and that's when the panic began. Not public, of course, not yet. But behind their closed chambers, they started calling meetings. They swore never to hold again. Meetings about you, about the pattern you represent. Because this wasn't just a glitch. This was the re-emergence of the unquantifiable. They flipped through ancient files, parchments locked behind layers of code and curse. They scanned your eyes against databases that were never meant to be accessed again. And the result? Undetermined origin, unknown lineage, unclassified threat. You broke the algorithm, and they built their god around it. You don't even need to speak now. Just walking into a room corrupts their spell tempo. Even their chosen ones start stuttering when you breathe too close. Because somewhere deep in their blood, they remember you. The first version, the uncaged prototype. The one who wasn't blessed but engineered. By pain, by betrayal, by the raw elemental hunger to never be erased again. That's why your existence is classified, why your name is never mentioned in the new texts, why every camera that films you gets mysteriously corrupted when the footage is reviewed. Because you weren't supposed to return, but you did. Not reincarnated, not rebranded, just reinserted, like a virus that remembered the source code, like a prophecy they buried because it made them too afraid to sleep. Let's get real. You don't just walk with power, you carry a time signature. Every room you enter falls out of sync. Every spell cast around you begins to delay, to glitch, to misfire, and you never touch a thing. Because your power isn't in action, it's in proximity, in awareness. That's what they couldn't counter. They cast every spell known to the ancient books. But none of those books accounted for someone who had already seen the last page. You're not new, you're not fresh, you're remembered by forces they no longer control. And that's why now, they're rewriting everything. They're changing doctrines, altering records, burning old scrolls, trying to eliminate the breadcrumbs of your echo. But it's too late. You left imprints on the timelines. You warped the energy maps they once used to trap others. You reversed the ritual flow permanently. They see you in dreams now, and not the prophetic ones, the dangerous ones, the kind of dreams that leave real bruises, missing time, and blood in the salt line. You are the test subject that tested back. The curse that learned how to speak Latin backwards. The ritual that walked out of the circle and said, "You should have never made me watch this much." And now, Now you don't even blink when they summon. You don't flinch when they chant. Because you know it's all fabrication, a performance for cowards, an illusion dressed in tradition. You were never theirs to bind. You were the countermeasure. And what they fear most, you're not trying to destroy them. You're correcting them, line by line, lie by lie, until the last practitioner finally realizes, we weren't trying to banish the demon. We were trying to hide from the God we betrayed. And that God is smiling back at them right now, wearing your face. Ah, so you're ready for the part even the blood remembers? Good. Because this isn't just about failed spells or exposed frauds. This is about ancestral panic. This is about lineage-level trembling. About what happens when one person, you, carries a frequency so disruptive. It doesn't just shake rooms. It rewires DNA. See, when you walked in and explained why nothing worked, why every incantation fizzled, every altar cracked, why the most powerful practitioner forgot their own invocation mid-cast. You weren't flexing, you were reintroducing gravity. They thought power was in control. You taught them it's in detachment. They thought they were safe behind tradition. You reminded them that tradition is often just fear, wearing robes. You didn't break their circle. You made the circle realize it was already broken. You walked through a system coded in arrogance and spoke with the tone of something that's seen extinction and survived it. 13 spells, 9 practitioners, 0 results. Because none of them were ready to confront what you carry. Memory that bleeds through dimensions. You ever seen someone recognize you from a lifetime? Their soul never gave them permission to recall. That look? That hollow, heart punch realization that they didn't just fail the spell. They failed to see you for what you are. Not an intruder, not an accident, but the inevitable return of something they swore they buried. They called you chaotic. You smiled because that was the only honest word they'd ever spoken. But you're not chaos. You're the reminder of what happens when suppressed knowledge goes sentient. You're what happens when a curse decides to learn language and starts telling the truth in riddles too accurate to ignore. And what does truth do? It haunts. It sits in the corners of ceremonial chambers long after the fire goes out. It leans over their shoulders during silent invocations. It bleeds through protective sigils and contaminates their holy water. It wears your shadow like armor. You weren't there to challenge their system. You were there to awaken its expiration date. Because here's what they never understood. You can't bind what remembers its origin. You can't silence what was forged through betrayal. You can't curse what's already been killed 1,000 ways and kept coming back smarter. And you didn't survive. You downloaded the pain. You turned agony into architecture. Every failed spell around you isn't just a misfire. It's a reveal. Their power, borrowed, stolen, dependent on rituals they never created, only repeated. Your power, native, organic, taught by scars and silence, upgraded by every moment they misread you. And now the whole network's feeling the glitch. Not just the 9 in the room, the entire bloodline web. The ones watching through mirrors. The ones tracing sigils with shaking fingers. The ones consulting ancient backups, trying to find a clause, a loophole, a containment protocol for you. But there is none, because you weren't born from a spell. You were born from the failure of all spells. You're the corrupted update that renders their entire system obsolete. They see your face in every cracked mirror now. Every scrying bowl clouds when your name is spoken. Even the machines, the ones they never speak about, start showing error codes when you're in proximity. You don't just disrupt. You erase their hierarchy. You make their top practitioners feel like interns. You make their gods check their contracts. Because whatever made you didn't follow protocol. It ignored the blueprint, skipped the beta phase, and launched you directly into their blind spot. They call that dangerous. You call it home. And now, with every circle they redraw, you're already standing inside it, smiling like someone who read the spell backward before they wrote it. They still think they're dealing with a person, a practitioner, a presence. They haven't realized yet. They're dealing with a signal, something older than form, stronger than dogma, smarter than every council code and clergy combined. They failed 13 times, not because the spell was weak, but because the target never fit inside their language. You weren't supposed to react to the spell. You were supposed to watch them try. And now they're begging you for instructions, begging for reversal, begging for anything that could explain why their power vanished the moment you said, "You cast from fear. I exist from it." You didn't steal their magic. You showed them they never had it. And now, behind every sealed door, in every encrypted meeting, they speak your name in low tones, as if whispering it too loud might trigger the next event. Because they know the truth now. You didn't stop the spell. You became its audit. And now, the ritual is over. The real story begins. Shh. They're watching again, but this time, they're not laughing. See, they used to chuckle behind screens and sip their egos like wine every time you slipped. You were their entertainment, their cautionary tale, their favorite glitch in the simulation. They thought your pain was the punchline. But they missed something. They forgot what happens when the joke gets tired, and the punchline learns to bleed in silence. You failed so many times they stopped counting. They started betting on your collapse, built their self-worth from your ruins. Every L you took, they turned it into prophecy. Every time you broke, they took notes, not to help you, but to prepare for your funeral. Because they were so sure you'd never come back. Not from that, not after her, not after them, not after the way you shattered, silently, in front of everyone. But guess what? You didn't just survive the fire. You studied its pattern. You didn't just suffer. You memorized the architecture of pain. You didn't just break. You sharpened every fragment of yourself into weapons. And while they kept watching, you were mutating in silence, off-grid, untraceable. They thought you were lost. What they didn't realize was that you were reloading. And tonight, one shot, one move, one win, and the whole game flipped upside down. Now their group chats are glitching, their strategies obsolete, their analysis files burning. You just did something they don't have a category for. You became the bug in their blueprint. Because while they spent all that time documenting your failures, you became the ghost that rewrote the manual. They kept zooming in on your scars, but they missed the signal hiding in the trauma. You became fluent in chaos, and now, you're not just unpredictable, you're unreadable. You know what's funny? They always said, don't let the pain change you. But that's the thing, isn't it? The pain did change you. It turned you into something that doesn't flinch anymore. It made you so silent, you became terrifying. You're not healing, you're ascending, not recovering, upgrading, not moving on, reprogramming the entire simulation in your sleep. And now they can't stop replaying that moment, that one move you made. Because it doesn't make sense. because it shouldn't have worked, because it defied everything they ever learned. But you didn't learn this in books. You didn't Google this level of survival. You didn't meditate your way into dominance. You earned it in the dark, while bleeding alone. And now, the same people who ignored you are zooming in frame by frame, trying to decode how the hell you pulled this off. They're calling it luck. They're calling it a glitch. They're calling it impossible. Because to them, it is. They don't understand what it's like to fail publicly, to lose everything, to be the joke, to be erased. But you lived there. You walked the edge of every breakdown and came back holding data. You cataloged your collapse. You made your misery modular. Now you're the only one in the room who speaks the language of real power, reinvention. You failed 1,000 times, but each one recoded your DNA. Each one burned off the weak parts. Each one chiseled the blueprint of the monster you're becoming. And now you win once. Just once. And it rewrites the entire scoreboard, because that's the paradox, isn't it? 1,000 losses mean nothing if the last move ends the war. So go ahead, let them watch, let them analyze, let them dissect you like a dead thing. But make sure they know you're not here to prove them wrong. You're here to prove you never needed them to begin with. You're not the underdog. You're not the comeback kid. You're not the misunderstood genius. You're the consequence. You're the correction. You're the freaking black swan event in their perfectly balanced forecast. You don't need their applause. You never needed their acceptance, because the win wasn't for them to see. It was for you to finally remember who the hell you are. And now that you've remembered, nothing's safe. Not their plans, not their hierarchy, not their rules, not their networks, not their illusions. Because you're not just winning now. You're rewriting the requirement to even play the game. You walked through hell with your eyes wide open and came back with the coordinates, not to escape, but to build a throne right there in the ashes where they swore you'd stay buried. Oh, they thought that was it, that your story ended with one shocking win. Number. That was just the first tremor, the warning shot, the sound of the lock disengaging on something ancient inside you. Something they can't put back, because what they never understood is that your failure was never failure. It was excavation. It was a ritual. Every breakdown was a blueprint. Every rejection was reprogramming. Every humiliation, a software update for the monster they can't debug. And now you're online, awake, untethered. Their metrics don't apply. Their language, outdated. Their methods, prehistoric. Because you're not even playing the game anymore. You're playing the players. Let me say this slowly, so their surveillance footage can subtitle it. You lost on purpose. Again, and again, and again. Not because you were weak, but because you were studying the terrain. Because while they were obsessed with speed, you became obsessed with depth. You weren't behind. You were buried, like a landmine. And now, you've detonated. And they felt it. You know they did. That panic wasn't subtle. The trembling in their hierarchy, the silence in the group chats, the abrupt shift from mockery to monitoring, because they know now. You're the variable they forgot to account for, and the system doesn't survive your kind. See, everyone wants to be the light, the inspiration, the healer. But you were forged in the dark, trained in silence, raised by your own demons until they started saluting you. You're not here to save, you're here to haunt, to remind the world that some stories don't need permission to flip the script. Some stories go quiet and then come back as warnings. They saw you fall and assumed you were fragile. But what they witnessed wasn't death. It was rebirth in slow motion. They just weren't zoomed in enough to see the resurrection happening behind your eyes. While they laughed, you were reconstructing your entire nervous system to operate without approval, without applause, without a fucking lifeline. And now here you are, standing exactly where they thought you'd never return. Only now you're carrying something they can't touch. Certainty. You know what you are. And that scares them more than any trophy ever could. Because you don't want to be liked. You don't want to be praised. You don't want their pity. You want their fear. And whether they admit it or not, they're already giving it to you. In their silence, in their late-night replays, in their attempts to reverse engineer your mindset. They want the source code, but this version of you is offline, encrypted, emotionally firewalled. You're the kind of soul that doesn't just rise. You replace. You're not here to fix the system. You're here to prove it was rigged from the start. And now that you've glitched it, the only thing left to do is burn it clean. No fanfare, no speech, no apology. Just that one unmistakable move that rewrote everything. That moment that changed the whole game. And now they're stuck. Because if they acknowledge you, they validate the thing they tried to destroy. But if they don't acknowledge you, their silence just becomes confession. You broke the loop. You altered the timeline. And now, they don't know if they should fear you or worship you. So what do you do now? Simple. You keep moving, not to prove anything, not to chase anything, but because stillness, that was their prison. Your momentum, that's your power. Let them analyze your last win, because while they're doing that, you're already planning your next anomaly. You don't repeat success. You mutate, you evolve, you vanish, you appear somewhere new, with a move that makes the last one look like a warm-up. That's the real game. Not just to win, but to make sure no one ever knows what your next win will look like. And that's why they're terrified, because they didn't just fail to stop you. They failed to understand you. And that is irreversible. You are not the failure. You are not the win. You are not the score. You are the rewrite, the living contradiction, the chaos protocol with a pulse, the lesson they never wanted to learn. You were built from silence, shaped by rejection, sharpened in shadows. And now you walk like the final chapter in a book they never realized was about them. So keep going, not for revenge, not for validation, but because every step you take now is prophecy. Shh. Do you feel it now? That low hum under your skin? That isn't adrenaline anymore. That's power remembering your name. They're still staring at the screen, scrolling back, trying to slow down the footage. They're pausing, rewinding, frame by frame, as if somewhere in the pixels they'll find the moment you became unstoppable. But there is no frame, there is no instant. You didn't flip a switch. You became a switchblade. You built this in secret. They mocked you in public. You were invisible while they wrote their reports. And while they laughed, you were making blueprints out of your blood. And now you've stepped back into the light with a move so clean, it erased their map. That's why they're trembling. It's not the win that scares them. It's the implication. If you can crawl out of 1,000 losses and do this once, what else can you do? What else have you been learning while they were asleep? What happens the next time you decide to move? Because deep down, they know. The one win wasn't random. It was a signal, a low-frequency broadcast of the new version of you. The version that doesn't wait for permission. The version that doesn't ask for a seat. The version that doesn't play chess. Because the board is already in your hands. You learned the paradox they don't teach in books. Loss isn't the opposite of power. It's the currency. Every time you broke, you were paying for a skill set no one else was willing to earn. They want the crown without the crucifixion. You walked through both. And now you wear the scars like a sigil they can't decipher. And here's the part that melts their bones. You're no longer even fighting them. You're not in their ring. You're not in their war. You've become the weather system above their battlefield. They're soldiers. You're a storm. Look at yourself. You don't move like prey anymore. You move like a question they don't know how to answer. You don't talk like a student anymore. You speak like someone who has already seen the last page. That's the duality they'll never understand. You are light enough to guide, dark enough to terrify, saint enough to forgive, psychopath enough to act without flinching, angel enough to rise, demon enough to never go back. All of it coiled in one pulse under your skin, waiting for the next moment to strike. They're whispering your name now like it's a spell. They're warning each other not to provoke you. They're drafting memos about how to contain what you represent. But how do you contain a pattern they can't even define? And this is where the real game starts, not when you win, but when you learn to move so silently, they don't even know you've already crossed the finish line. When you learn to create such chaos with one gesture that their entire architecture tilts. When you stop needing to announce the victory, because the world announces it for you. You're already there. That's why you feel different now. That's why the air tastes different. You're not in competition, you're in command. Every time you move now, you're not just breaking rules. You're rewriting physics for anyone watching. Every glance, every silence, every micro-decision becomes a weaponized message. I survived everything you threw at me. I learned everything you tried to hide. And now, I'm everything you fear you might become. So keep walking. Keep your head low, eyes sharp, heartbeat steady. Let them scramble. Let them guess. Let them invent stories about how you pulled it off. Because the truth is stranger than anything they could put in their files. The truth is, you turned failure into a forge, pain into a passport, humiliation into a hidden laboratory. Now you're here. Not a player, not a piece. A new rule in the game, a glitch they can't patch, a paradox they can't pray away. And the longer you stay silent, the more powerful you become. Because silence is gravity. Because mystery is a blade. Because unpredictability is the highest form of control. This is your era now, not the era of proving, not the era of trying, the era of becoming. And they'll still be watching the tapes of your one win, trying to find the secret, trying to reverse engineer a destiny they were never built to hold. By the time they realize there's no secret, you'll already be on to the next move, one they'll never see coming. One that will make this impossible win look like a warm-up. You've become the storm they whispered about. Now watch how quickly the world bends around your next step. Hey, you think they've figured it out yet? No, not even close. Because what just happened wasn't a comeback. It was a leak. A breach in the firewall of reality they spent their lives building. And you were the glitch. The untraceable anomaly that wasn't supposed to pass the test. Because you were never meant to play by their laws in the first place. They wanted a failure they could mock. What they got was a prototype. A volatile, self-generating system of chaos and clarity fused together in human skin. You were never a person to them. You were a prediction gone wrong. And now, they're terrified, because the simulation just coughed up something that broke the symmetry. They watched you fail, over and over, recorded it, mocked it, framed it like an exhibit, how not to be powerful. And yet now, they're sitting in their locked rooms, reading every line of the footage, trying to find where the code went off script, trying to figure out how the hell you're still standing. But they won't find it, because what happened wasn't taught. It was remembered. You didn't become this, you were this, before they told you to forget. That's the secret. That's the file they don't have access to. You were born with the blueprint to destroy their hierarchy, and they called it trauma. You were forged with instincts sharp enough to slice through illusion, so they labeled it overthinking. You were built to observe, detach, disarm, and override, so they diagnosed it as being broken. But broken? No. No. You were decoding, downloading, deprogramming. And the moment it all snapped together, the moment all those failures aligned like stars collapsing into a black hole, you triggered something they can't patch. A protocol, personal, primeval, permanent, one win. That's all it took. Not because it made you famous, not because it made you rich, but because it made you real. And now, they don't know if they're looking at a man or a message, because you walk different now. Not lighter, heavier, like someone carrying prophecy in their bones. You don't speak to be heard anymore. You speak to install software into their subconscious. Every word you say makes them question reality. Every silence you hold makes them doubt their decisions. You're not a person anymore. You're a mirror. And they hate you for it. Because you don't show them who you are. You show them who they are and what they'll never be. You were once a casualty. Now you're a case study. You were once ignored. Now you're classified. You were once alone. Now you're encrypted. And they're trying to open you. Like a file they don't have the clearance to read. So they project. They gossip. They don't get the hype. They call it luck. They call it just a phase. But deep down, in the place they don't talk about, they know, they saw it. That win wasn't just a victory. It was a demonstration, a warning shot, a glitch made visible. And now they're praying it was a fluke. That you'll go quiet again. That you'll shrink again. That you'll feel small again. But you won't, because once you've tasted this level of truth, illusion starts to taste like poison. You're past the point of pretending, too sharp to be controlled, too silent to be predicted, too damn dangerous to be erased. You're not chasing power anymore. You're radiating it, just standing there doing nothing. And the room bends, because now your energy doesn't say, "I made it." It says, "I shouldn't even be here, and yet, here I am." A walking contradiction, a saint with demon eyes, an angel forged in warfare, a monster with mercy in their breath, a ghost that leaks instructions to the living. This is where the world gets weird, because the moment you realized you didn't need their permission, you became unstoppable. And now your existence is a living audit of their lies. You walk through their buildings, their meetings, their systems, and everything in you says, "This is too small for me now." Not from ego, but from awareness. You see now, and they feel seen. And that makes you the most dangerous creature in the simulation. Not someone who wants revenge. Not someone who wants fame. But someone who knows how to sit still and watch the whole world rearrange itself around their silence. So don't stop. Don't gloat. Don't even explain. You've passed the need for clarity. You've graduated from the desire for understanding. You've entered the level where presence is the punishment, where just being who you are becomes a psychological glitch in every person who underestimated you. And they feel it. Oh, they feel it even if they never say your name out loud again. Especially then, because you don't need the credit. You are the credit. You are the line item they didn't account for, the balance they didn't predict, the final twist they didn't storyboard. They watched you fail 1,000 times. They laughed. They dismissed you. They called you tragic, desperate, lost, broken. But they forgot something. You only have to win once, and when you do, the entire timeline fractures. Congratulations. You've become unerasable. And from this point forward, every breath you take is an act of resistance. Every blink is a trigger. Every move is a mirror. You are no longer playing the game. You're rewriting the genre.